Good evening, everyone. This is Herne's son himself. And today we're very excited, aren't we, Herne's nephew?
Indeed.
What are you? I'm not sure you're Herne's lazy nephew or something. So today, what an honour. So as a long-standing pagan myself, I'm joined by a much greater person of that persuasion than myself, the wonderful Jayney Goddard, who is like one of those people who's like a force of nature, if you don't mind me saying. And I've just told her she has to represent the moon goddess today, for those of you. So she's regularly seen bathing under the moon's light whenever it can do it, really.
It's true.
So how are you, Jayney?
I'm well, Paul, and thank you so much for having me. What a fabulous introduction. I shall try to live up to it. I'll do my best.
Oh, I think you do every day. Check out Jayney. So Jayney is one of the world's leading authorities on complementary medicine, including staying young, which is why she used to be seen under the moon, and anti-aging, and even diets, anti-carbs and all this stuff. So I've been reading about you see. I have this ambition to become your agent.
All right.
As long as it's lucrative, or I get extra venison chops from Herne for giving up. Obviously it's quite an onerous task being Herne's son, to be honest. And of course you run the risk of other people trying to shoot you with arrows as well, which doesn't go down well with me.
No, there is that.
Yeah, so yes, I hope you know. So you are as well as being a world-leading authority on complementary medicine and various other things as well. You are also a druid, I believe.
Indeed, yes, that's right.
So what does that entail?
Well, Druidry is a lot of people think it's a religion. It's actually not. It's a life philosophy, and it's something that has always appealed to me because I've always been very connected to nature and the rhythms of the seasons and so on. And fundamentally, Druidry is really all about. Gosh, I mean, there are so many more expert people to speak about this, but from my really humble perspective, as it takes 20 years to train and to sort of get through the various grades from Bard to Ovate through to Druid. And in fact, in the very, very olden days, in the dim mists of time, you would apprentice with a Druid for 20 years. So it's not something to be taken lightly. It is a life's work. But it's about really understanding, I think, our place in the universe, the role that we play, and, how we can essentially harness those energies within ourselves so that we are deeply connected to our brothers and sisters in the animal kingdom, our non-human brothers and sisters, that is, and every sentient being. And actually, in Druidry, even what we would consider sort of on the other side of things to be non-sentient beings. So, people tend to think that trees are non-sentient and rocks are non-sentient and so on, and the earth is non-sentient. But actually, we know nowadays, thanks to advances in hard science, that actually these things have a life force, although albeit different from our own.
Yes, and you only got to watch Lord of the Rings to see the Ents.
Right, exactly. That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, I just before we play our first song today, my great grandfather was a druid, and one of my favourite possessions is I have his sort of certificate next to me in my chair at home, which is a picture of several people by the stones of Stonehenge. Actually,
yes.
It's 1871. I think he was made a druid.
Yes.
Great stuff.
He was in good company, Paul, because, various people have been inducted into the Druid Order, including the Queen Mother and also, I believe, Winston Churchill as well. So it's not quite as woo as people might actually think.
Obviously, I'm in a very fortunate position, Jayney, because I'm obviously both a stag and a human at the same time.
Well,
and it's quite good because I don't, I'm just schizophrenic. I don't need to understand which part of me is dominant at any point, particularly other than to make sure that I do Herne's bidding.
Yes.
So it's interesting what you were saying. Actually, I did a show with Jayney's. I know Jayney because of her brother Luke, who's partner is Nabila, and they are I just said to them actually, two of the nicest people I've ever met by a distance, and you can see why Jayney is Luke's sister. I was actually interviewed on their podcast, and it was the first time I'd actually ever talked about what I really believe in. And it's funny, sometimes it all comes together. So I was actually able to explain it. So one of the things that resonated with me with what you were talking about, which is why I get so upset about things like what happens in the Faroe Islands, for instance, as an example, with them killing all the pilot whales, is my belief is that we owe a duty to the rest of the world to look after life, and I totally agree with you. It's interesting what you're saying about trees. It's interesting how a lot of people, I think you've either got the sort of attitude that you and I have got, or people are sort of very selfish and they almost have the opposite opinion, that they can do whatever they want because they are dominant, I guess.
Yes. You are right, Paul. We're very disconnected, I think. I think this is the issue. I think really since the Industrial Revolution, I think what's happened is that there's become a sort of a disconnectedness from the rhythms of nature, and therefore from plants, from animals, and so on. And with that, if you think about it, we are the only species that actively destroys its habitat, its home. And so, I think we need to start to understand our place in nature. And certainly Mother Nature is fighting back with catastrophic weather patterns and so on. Unfortunately, this destruction just can't go on. It's unsustainable.
Yeah, interesting. So, are you? So I'm sure you don't actually support Greta Thunberg, but so are you a believer in the sort of client activist type opinion, or I tend to have more of opinion that it's more to do with cycles and nature,
Yes, I think that there are inevitably cycles that happen. And I think that is something that you can't leave out of the equation. However, I think there's also a large role that mankind has been playing with things like destruction of the rainforest to grow intensively farmed meat, which is just appalling. It's appalling from an ecological perspective. It's an absolute catastrophe. But it's also appalling from the perspective of billions of animals being killed just to appease our taste buds. We don't need that, and of course neither do the animals. So it's I think it's two things going on simultaneously, actually.
Welcome back to Albion's Keeper, brought to you exclusively on Aspen Waite Radio and syndicated on Deal.
That's the one.
It's failed. We're going to get a sandwich from Deal, aren't we? So, one of the things, Jayney, is very interesting, particularly through having our show on Deal now. I actually had 14% of my listeners on Saturday night came from Iran.
Oh, my goodness.
And apparently the show was restreamed through a radio station in Tehran. We haven't found out all the details yet. So on that particular night, my biggest listener base was from Germany, actually. So we had, I think it was Germany, Finland, Spain, Iran. And actually the UK was about half of the German numbers, funnily enough. So,
isn't that amazing?
So one of the things that's been interesting is so Jayney actually is probably one of the few people who actually understands the madness of this show, Albion's Keeper, where we're basically looking to defend nature and our island, particularly in preserving values, I think, and preserving the fact that we've got a duty to look after nature, and also I'm a great believer in things like the rich look after the poor and the strong look after the weak and this sort of thing. And I know that would resonate with you.
Yes.
So one of the things that's been obvious as I think Albion's Keeper, something like 80% of the listeners actually come from overseas. And so I sort of been thinking that talking about defending our island probably isn't particularly relevant if you're sitting in Helsinki. So I think having you on is actually very helpful, because I think what we can do is we as we're doing today, we're talking more about the world as a whole. And of course, you know, you don't have to be British to be a spiritualist or to believe in nature. So yeah, I think your appearance today is going to be catalytic, apart from anything else.
Wow.
And also insufferably cheerful. I mean, honestly.
I try.
Hello, and I'm insufferably cheerful. My name is Jayney Goddard. I'm very pleased to be on Aspen Waite Radio.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. Yeah. You know, it's interesting though, because the things we're talking about, you know, defending the island, but actually let's, you know, from taking that as a sort of a really, as a sort of a metaphor, I think, understanding that we're all connected, and that you're quite right. We do have to defend, you know, people who are weaker than ourselves. We have to look after people who are suffering. We also have to understand that there is an onslaught from essentially larger organizations that are far, far bigger than ourselves. For example, big pharma, big agrochemical, big agriculture, big food, and all the rest of it. All of whom are actually absolutely designed to essentially take advantage of, you know, let's call it the little person. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Of course, obviously our listeners will understand that. But, you know, unfortunately, with these organizations, it really boils down to what can they do to best serve their shareholders at the expense of the health and well-being of the general populace. And so, you know, you've got an awful lot of really dark stuff happening with the you know, big pharmaceutical industry, where they're experimenting on orphan children in Africa and so on, and have been fined $350 million for doing so. And it goes on. That's just one instance. It goes on and it goes on. And this is where we've got an example of the bigger taking advantage of and using the smaller, with those people not being defended. And I believe we have a moral duty to do what we can to support people, to help people, whether it's just, you know, simply a case of giving your seat up on the bus for somebody who's less able than yourself. So from the microcosmic to the macrocosmic, I think, you know, we can all play our part, even smiling at somebody and being insufferably cheerful, just smiling at somebody, a random stranger. You don't know what that person's going through. So these little I talk a lot when I'm lecturing. I talk a lot about resilience, happiness, kindness, and so on. And I also talk about the evidence base, what actually happens to us, not just externally, not just cognitively or emotionally, but right down to a genetic and chromosomal level. What actually happens when we actually make a random act of kindness. It's a wonderful thing, Paul. Would you like me to speak to that? Because I think it's incredibly useful for the listeners to know about this. It's just a snippet of info I'd like to share with you, if that's okay.
If we could play the next song and then come back to that.
Of course.
So, of course. Anyway, welcome back to Jayney Goddard here on Aspen Waite Radio, playing out also on Deal Radio. So carry on with your deep thoughts, Jayney.
Okay, yes. Well, as I was saying, I think it's really important for people to know that, you know, things like acts of kindness and compassion and so on are not just things that are ephemeral and they just happen in the moment. But there was a fantastic piece of research that came out not so long ago, which was where they were studying somebody who was doing an act of kindness for another person. They studied the person receiving the act of kindness, but they also then studied, interestingly, and I think this is where things get really spooky, what was happening to the person who was witnessing this act of kindness, so this third party. And in all three of those people, their immune system improved in function and their chronic inflammatory levels reduced. And the reason this is important is because the common denominator underpinning every single chronic disease, those diseases that we wrongly associate with being a natural part of the aging process. So essentially, when you have an act of kindness done to you, when you do an act of kindness, or when you witness an act of kindness, your chronic inflammatory levels decrease, which means that you are less susceptible to developing these very severe life-limiting chronic illnesses. But also, if you are experiencing one of those illnesses, it can actually contribute to halting and even reversing those illnesses. So these lifestyle changes that we can so easily implement, there's nothing fancy-pantsier at all. It's dead easy. It's just about being nice to people and also being able to receive kindnesses and, and even witness them. It makes a difference to us on a cellular and genetic and chromosomal level.
Just out of interest, there's two things I wanted to say. So does that include Alzheimer's and dementia, for instance, when you talk about
it? Does, yes. So when I'm talking about the chronic, unfortunately, lifestyle-related chronic diseases, we're looking at things like heart disease, the neurological diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. We're also looking at things like kidney disease, autoimmunity, arthropathies, and so on. So all of those where lifestyle essentially can play a part. There are so what we say in the field of epigenetics is that your genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. And so there's there's a lot that can be done to halt and even reverse these diseases that we wrongly associate with being a natural part of the aging process. They're actually not. And lifestyle approaches can mitigate a lot of these illnesses. Now, that is not to say that every single incidence of cancer is related to lifestyle. I mean, if there's a cancer, if a child develops cancer, well, clearly it's not. There is a massive genetic component. However, what we do know is that in 2/3 of cancer cases, and these, of course, will happen in older people, there is a big lifestyle component to that. And actually to the outcome as well. There's a mindset component. There's also a lifestyle component. So there's a lot that can be done. And so, if somebody is facing a dire diagnosis, there's a lot that they can look into. Yes, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It may well be that chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and other therapies, gene therapies and so on, are the right thing for them to do. We would never say don't do that in my field. But what we would also say is this is complementary medicine. We can actually support you while you're going through this treatment, so that you'll have a better outcome. And there's a huge evidence base for this. So, Paul, it's really important to just state that everything that I talk about and everything I reference is fully evidence-based, because my field is fraught with woo, and so I'm trying to sort of bring some sanity to the arena, and that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. Yes.
Okay, so we got a couple of tracks take us up to 7 o'clock, and then we've got our feature this week of 1963, when, of course, Jayney was still a figment of someone's imagination, but I unfortunately wasn't. So I'm starting to really get into a year where I can actually talk with some knowledge about. So it'll be interesting to get Jayney's take on some of the songs, for instance. So I hope you enjoyed the show so far. Fantastic guest. Real life's message. I just finishing before we get on to the music. I'm a great believer myself. What I try to do is I treat people. So, for instance, I'm very kind to other people's children because I'd want other people to be kind to mine. Do you see what I mean? So I sort of tend to sit there and think. What's very sad, though, for instance, is I'm one of those people that says hello to everybody, and puts a hand up and smiles. And half the people look at you like you're a weirdo.
Yes.
What are you doing? What are you doing smiling at me, you weirdo, Anyway,
don't
on
make
weirdos,
contact.
You come to the right place. What's special to you about that song, then?
Oh, my goodness. No regrets. Absolutely. I mean, we go through life, if we're blessed, we can get to our sort of age, Paul. A lot of people don't have the privilege of making it this far. But the thing is, I think, we can make mistakes along the way. But it's really important that we show ourselves forgiveness, Forgiveness is one of the strongest, most powerful things we can do for ourselves on a well-being perspective. And so, if you can forgive your own transgressions and those of others, and not have any regrets, I think that's the most important thing, really.
Sounds like a Catholic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it's a bad joke.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does. No. I'm no, you can't. Well,
sorry.
Yeah.
My poor humour. Right.
It's all right.
Here we go. Anyway, welcome back to Albion's Keeper. Brought to you exclusively by Aspen Waite Radio by Herne's son, myself, Mr. Paul, and Mr. Nathaniel Warren.
That is I,
who has recently been inducted into the Herne family. And we're joined today by a legendary moon goddess who sometimes goes under the name of Jayney Goddard, who is... I think, to be honest, it's one of the things, bearing in mind you and I are very like-minded, Jayney.
Yes.
I find, for instance, just looking at you, for instance, right, it's uplifting because you're radiating joy and positivity and cheerfulness. So it makes you feel like doing that as well. It's not rocket science, is it really? If you see someone being kind to someone, it'd be very rare if you didn't go, oh, that's nice, So I wasn't sure particularly what we're going to be talking about today because Jayney's an expert in so many things. But I think maybe it's sort of turned into a life's lessons show, hasn't it?
Well, I don't know if anybody gets anything positive out of these little snippets, then that's fantastic, isn't it? We've done our job, Paul.
Yeah, and of course, you've written several books. Have you got another book about to come out or anything you'd like to promote today?
No. Do you know something? I haven't actually. I've been working so hard. So my day job is that I'm president of the Complementary Medical Association. Yes. And we've got so many exciting things happening with that organisation. New courses, advanced professional courses that we're launching and all sorts of training. So I've got my eye very firmly on all of that, things that we can do for our members. It's an organisation I founded 31 years ago, so it is rather all-encompassing. And
when you were 10,
yes,
amazing.
That's right. Yes, I was actually 5, but I was a very 5-year-old.
6. I thought 6. I remember.
No, I wish. No.
37 is a good age, I think.
Indeed, very advanced. So it's been a fantastic experience, and it's global now. So it's making an impact all over the world and helping people all over the world, which is a lovely thing. And so my next book, though, actually, funnily enough, I am planning a book, but nothing to do with my field whatsoever. It harks back to my days back in the 1980s as a dancer in the West End, and all of the crazy shenanigans that went on at that time. It was a very dramatic time.
You're not going to make me blush, are you?
Why is that? Oh.
That's a joke. I don't know what shenanigans you were getting up to when you were dancing around.
Blush away, all sorts of shenanigans. Yes, it's going to be a bit of a it's going to be a bit full on. And but I'm really excited because I've never written, aside from at school, I've never written fiction before. So it's a challenge for me because I've written 5 books so far, and the CMA website, which is over 7,500 pages, just on various research things in complementary medicine. So, this for me is a departure, but I'm very much looking forward to doing something more creative.
Good. Right. So now we're in 1963, and 1963 is my earliest sporting memory. So my father supported Manchester United. So 1963, Manchester United nearly got relegated. They came 19th in Division 1, but they got to the FA Cup final, played Leicester City, who came 4th in the first division that year. And I was very excited. I can remember quite a lot of the match, even though I was 3. And Man United won 3-1. So that was made Paul very happy. I used to drive my dad crazy on Saturday afternoons, watching Grandstand that used to be on at the time. And I particularly liked horse racing, so I would be sitting in my chair, bouncing up and down. Anyway, the first track for 1963 I picked today was from Freddie and the Dreamers, who I always associate with a program called Cracker Jack that was presented by the legendary Leslie Crowther, who I actually got to meet during the snow crisis of 1981, I think it might have been. Wonderful, wonderful man. a man with a claim to the best voice ever, I think, the wonderful Andy Williams. Certainly a big inspiration to me. I used to love Andy Williams' Christmas shows as well. They were, of course, Andy Williams discovered the Osmonds. I don't know if you remember that.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, the Osmonds were on his show every Saturday.
Goodness me.
Yeah. Crazy horses. Oh, I'm just stop that.
Paper roses.
We got sensible lady on today. So the trouble is having the heady responsibility of being the sort of human representative of a god in Herne is when you get to meet the moon goddess. I'm probably going to get told off by. And the thing is, with paganism, there isn't really a supreme deity as such, is there? Which is, obviously, if we were Roman Catholics, we'd have God telling me off in a minute, but I don't have that. So, I've got like a cross between you and the sun, might scold me or something. But sorry.
We're all very we're all very pragmatic in paganism. Just sort of, a pinch of this and a dab of that. It all works.
Well, it's interesting about paganism. I personally greatly prefer Father Christmas in his original green suit to the red suit, for instance. Christmas obviously is a pagan festival, which is like most things, been nicked by those of you who are Christians. Nothing wrong with being a Christian, of course. I mean, I started off in life sort of being one, and then I realised, that it was simply a sort of that the Bible was sort of a guide, like a hitchhiker's guide to life, but written by people that won, basically. So, like history is written by the victor, isn't it? So, I've got some really good. If you go on my Facebook, I do a lot of pagan posts, particularly with the Norse gods and Odin and stuff and nature. And I think really, if you sit down and you were to talk, someone was to talk to someone like you and said, what do you believe in? I would find it very difficult for someone not to agree with you, actually, because there's nothing that you would say, in my opinion, that anyone could possibly think was anything other than good.
Well, that's right. For example, in Druidry, it's open to literally everybody of every persuasion. And, within the Druid order, we have Druid Christians, Druid Jews. We have, just literally everybody. It's a very, very open environment that really just respects everybody's views and providing that they're good people and that they're kind and that they aren't doing horrible things to other people. That's kind of the baseline, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. Welcome back to Albion's Keeper here on Aspen Waite Radio. And we're just making Jayney even more happy than she already is. I mean, honestly, I wish I could do an impersonation of Jayney's face. I think it probably would hurt.
I am very smiley.
Cheeks are like big apples, like these two great big red apples shoved in your face. And Nathaniel turned around to me during we're listening to the Cascades, and he said, "Jayney is just the perfect guest for the show."
Absolutely,
and she is, isn't she? So. I hope all you people, wherever you are really appreciating all you're going to get out of today, because I think there is a simple message in this world. One of the things I think that on the whole, people overcomplicate life. Life is actually much more simple than people think. And I think as a general maxim, if you can keep things simple, it's a good thing. And for me, and it's something, for instance, I know of one person in particular who is actually quite old and to me has learned nothing. It's a waste of time him being born, because he has no joy in his heart, no love for his fellow man. And for me, in a nice way, what makes life is meeting people like you, great people that are good people that and indeed your brother and your effective sister-in-law.
Yes.
People that you can trust, that are good people, genuinely good people.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean that you don't do things that, are embarrassing or something. We won't go there because you'll embarrass me again. So I can't possibly look at you when we're doing that. But that's what it's all about, And I think for those of you listening today, Jayney's just such a great role model, because not only is she living the sort of life that she's talking about, she's also greatly helping the lives of others in terms of coping with pain and therapy and everything for all these conditions. So there we are. You can take that, and I think Jayney's going to get the first Herne's big merit badge.
Herne's
It's going to be so bigger than gold. It's going to be like platinum or something. I don't know.
Fantastic.
Some other. Yeah, we'll have to make it for you now. We said it.
You will. That's wonderful, Paul. Thank you. I shall treasure it forever.
So those of you who are short on so what sort of things can people buy from the CMA, Complementary Medical Association?
They can't really buy anything as such. The reason is because we're a professional association. So what we do is we set standards in complementary medicine so that, and the reason I founded the organisation all these years ago was because back then in the early 90s, it was kind of like the Wild West, and there were no standards there. There were very few exams in the field, very few really well-established schools. So I came out of my first training was a 7-year training in homeopathic medicine. And I came out, fully expecting the world to beat a path to my door, wanting to be treated by me, and was sorely disappointed. And so I very quickly realized that, we had to set something up in order to professionalize this field, because it has so much. Lifestyle medicine overall has so much to offer literally everybody, given what we were saying earlier about chronic ailments being mainly lifestyle related. So how do we address that on a global scale? How do we get governments to sit down and listen to us? And so I've formulated ways of doing that. So we are, as I say, a membership body for professionals. But a great deal of my work involves speaking to governments worldwide and actually ratifying and standardizing practitioners in those countries to basically offer a sort of national occupational standard of therapies to the populace. So, for example, I've gone from the smaller countries right the way through to the larger countries. One of the jobs I did was for the US White House Commission on complementary and integrative medicine, whereby I had to look at the standards and the rules in each of the different 50 states and bring them together and stand in front of this great big Congress.
Good luck on that.
Yeah, exactly. And give my findings in front of the panel. And luckily, those findings and recommendations were accepted unanimously. So we have made massive inroads into, the health and well-being of various populations around the world.
Very good. So got a little personal story next. So the next song I'm going to play is the first song, the first record that was ever bought for me. So one of the things is I walk around singing all the time, and it's something I've done ever since I was born. And when I was 3, this was my favourite song. It's written by the Beatles, but became a hit for Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. Listen, do you want to know a secret? I used to walk around the house singing that, and I'm very happy to be playing that now. Good song, that's Bobby V and The Night Has a Thousand Eyes. One of those sort of classic songs that sort of goes on forever. I think it's quite interesting with music how you get some songs. I was listening to My Way by Frank Sinatra yesterday, which is one of the great songs of all time. I actually sang live last year, didn't I? Yeah. And you take that song, for instance, and it's a song that will last forever. And then I'll give you an example. The Human League, for instance, who were a huge band in the early 80s, I think their music is already outdated. It doesn't fit into today at all. So is music an important part of your life, young lady?
Oh my goodness, massively so, yes. I started off as a violinist and then sort of transitioned over to playing the harp in adulthood because, it's something I always wanted to do. But, finding a harp teacher is very, 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 very challenging. So we could never find one. I finally got one. And I'm passionate about music. And, there's very little that I would say that I actually actively don't like. Not so mad about sort of kind of manufactured pop, if you can call it that, but I've just got Catholic with a small c, tastes in music, so everything from classical to jazz to blues. My kind of like ideal night out will be going to a grungy blues club and just having the best time ever. So yeah, I just love it all. Or another great night out would be going to a candlelit concert of Baroque music, for example. So yeah, I just love it. I lap it up. It's wonderful.
Just out of interest, and there is a reason for asking you this, do you sing?
No, I don't. No, I wish I did.
That's a shame.
Yes, Nabila sings. Nabila sings beautifully. Have you ever heard any of her work?
No.
Oh my goodness! This is a lady you need to feature her, please, because she's extraordinary. She's so gifted.
Very good.
Yes.
Right. So one of the things I love musicals. I'm also renowned for crying at anything remotely emotional. And so this song comes from one of my favourite musicals of all time, Carousel, with one of my all-time favourite ladies, who, of course, is invited to the very select club that ladies get to be with me. Her and Mary Hopkin, for instance, and Julie Andrews mainly.
Yes.
The wonderful Shirley Jones. And this song is obviously sung as, I think it's Curly is his name, as he's dying in the street. Made into an anthem, the number one hit by Jerry and the Pacemakers and stolen by Liverpool FC. I absolutely love that song, people. That's wonderful. Ronettes. A Phil Spector composition, of course. And whenever we think of Phil Spector, apart from him being in prison, got to think about Christmas, the best Christmas album of all time. And his production is just marvellous. So, right, Jayney Goddard, legend, moon goddess, author, public speaker. What else are you? Oh, dancer. I didn't know you were a dancer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can look at you while I'm doing this. I'm going to... What sort of dancing did you do?
Well, I started off as I've got a checkered history, Paul. Let's be honest here. So I started off as a ballet dancer, and
cool.
Long story short, what actually happened was that when I was at ballet school, they always said to us, if you ever get offered an equity contract, because back in the day you had to be an equity member in order to be able to work in the West End or on TV, films, and so on. You don't need to nowadays, but that's how I accidentally became a circus artist. So they came along. Yeah, that's a segue, isn't it? And
fantastic.
So what happened was that these people came along to the ballet school. They held auditions. I got the job. It turned out to be for a circus that was a permanent circus throughout the London summer season, and it was a forerunner to Cirque du Soleil, which is why they were recruiting ballet dancers. So I realised that I rather liked this circus gig. It was pretty fantastic. So I started realising that I had absolutely no fear whatsoever of heights and no sense of my own mortality because I was very, very young. And so I became an aerialist in the circus. So I was doing flying trapeze, high wire, aerial ballet. Yeah.
Fantastic. Chase Jayney down the beach and see if I can stop her smiling. That would be good. It's going to be one of my dreams. Get a water pistol. Yeah. Wipe that smile off your face.
That could do it. That could do it, especially weather like this.
What do you reckon, Nathaniel?
That's the way.
Well, I have to say, it's quite funny. I've had so many really good artists, so many guests on this show. And I suppose there's an element, so don't take this the wrong way. There's an element, obviously, the person that's in front of you is obviously the person that's sort of, but, I'd have to agree with Nathaniel. So it's been an absolute delight having you on the show. And I'd probably kidnap you and tie you up and make you sit on that chair every week if I could.
I'd be delighted.
So, no, seriously. So it's really good. And I think also, apart from your being an inspiration, maybe even, and a role model, I think it's funny because we played this song, didn't we? Let me show you the way. Jayney's shown us the way today. I think.
Indeed.
You've actually shown me the gateway of how to get from Albion's keeper keeping the island to what I realised I had to do, which was to defend the world. If that makes sense. And I think you've been the portal for that.
Oh,
so thank you very much.
pleasure.
I shall try and do a post on Facebook or something to recognise your part
great.
of that. Is there anything you'd like to say in the last 20 seconds?
Just say thank you for having me. It's been absolutely fantastic to be with you. What a privilege. I'm very grateful for this time. Thank you.
I know. I mean, so if you would like to do a show on Aspen Waite Radio, your own show, then you're very, very welcome. And you obviously don't have to say yes to make me happy, but it'd be lovely to have you on at Christmas, maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And you could be. I'll change you from being the moon to Santa's helper. Okay? And,
I've actually got an elf outfit, so we can do that.
That sounds good. I'm getting excited already. That was Jayney Goddard. I am Herne's son, joined as always by Mr. Warren, who is Herne's nephew, very young nephew, playing out with the Beatles and The Mission, one of the best songs of all time. And we hope you have a lovely week. Bye.